Coming up on Over a Barrel, a jump at the pump across portions of the U.S., but will there be relief in sight? You can find out right now. Over a Barrel starts now. Welcome to Over a Barrel. I'm Matt. He's Patrick. Thanks for joining us. And before we even get into where prices are rising across the nation, make sure you like and subscribe wherever you are watching or listening to this particular episode.
I think we've over-asked people to like and follow us, but hopefully they're doing it by now.
Absolutely. We love it when people follow us and, not in real person because that's kind of creepy. But beyond that, we love it whenever people follow us on the podcast and take a listen and watch. And we love the questions. We love the feedback. So keep all of that coming. And Patrick, how are you doing, sir?
Well, I'm good, Matt. I wouldn't say the same for gas prices, which you had a perfect tease there. So we're going to make you wait a couple more seconds before we get to where gas prices have gone up. But I've been good. As you drink your coffee, things have heated back up though at the pump a little bit. National average inched up a little bit here over the last couple of days. So I guess we can start there. Looking at where prices have moved, we saw a big jump in the Great Lakes. Thanks to BP for doing maintenance. 45 days of maintenance. By the way, maintenance is normal this time of year. And why do they do maintenance? Well, it's one of those things. It's a necessary evil. I'm about to take a road trip here in a couple weeks. It's the same thing like getting your car ready for your long travels. You sure travel a lot. It's kind of like getting your oil change and your tires rotated. The same thing for refineries in the fall. Once peak gasoline demand is done, they start doing their inspections, their maintenance, their upgrades. I mean, there's a lot that you don't think about. The average refinery probably has enough piping to go around the world at least half a time or something like that. I mean, we're talking about a lot of pipes that need to be inspected. The thickness over time, Matt, the thickness of those pipes certainly can thin, especially depending on what type of oil is being processed or what type of material is going through the pipelines. The metallurgy of a refinery, you don't realize that those pipes will thin over time because keep in mind, oil has sulfur. That sulfur over time will degrade the thickness of pipelines. Now, there's different pipeline. Like I said, the metals in pipelines can vary. But yeah, they have to make sure the thickness of those pipelines, because that's exactly what's happened at refineries before, is that if you don't, in fact, the thickness of the pipeline is what caused the Philadelphia Energy Solutions refinery in Philadelphia to catch fire back in 2019. Essentially, that fire led to a massive explosion. And that refinery has been dismantled now because, that was a huge situation. If you want to check out, by the way, a very, very well done video on how that happened, go on the Chemical Safety Board on YouTube, the CSB channel on YouTube, and search for PES refinery. And you'll see how, this is one of those things that is a necessary evil to check into. But yeah, all of this is maintenance. It's normal for this time of year. But when you have a refinery as big as the BP refinery, by the way, 440,000 barrels a day of capacity, that's the largest refinery in the Midwest and the Great Lakes. It's kind of a big deal when those go down for maintenance.
Was that the refinery that had issues earlier this year after a tornado hit?
No, good question. Actually, we had a call out on social that asked us the same thing. No, that was the ExxonMobil refinery in Joliet, which is probably, I would say maybe 30 or 40 miles away. So they're in pretty close proximity, but it was a different refinery.
Yeah. So there's a lot going on with that. And of course, that's created some issues at the pump.
A little bit of pressure. Yeah.
And when do you think that we might see some relief for that, or will we see some relief for that?
Well, we should see some relief, and I'll throw the biggest mover tab up here. This is from the Gas Buddy website, prices.gasbuddy.com. If you always want to check out gas price data 24/7. So yeah, looking here, Ohio up 16 cents from last week, Michigan up 12 cents from last week, Indiana up 9 cents from last week. And keep in mind, some of these are just average increases, right? The average station, or some of these stations went up like 30, 40, 50 cents. I saw a station in Ohio that was at 272 and went up to 319 a gallon. So some of these are fairly big increases. But if you scroll down here, still a lot of decreases, Matt. That's the good news. New Mexico, New Hampshire, look at all the decreases here. But then again, Kentucky went up, Colorado went up. Some of these are price cycling markets. So we did get a little bit of a break in the decline. And like I said, gas prices are holding at about 320. And because all these states price cycled at the same time, and by the way, another video we'll try to share here highlights what price cycling is. It's a really well done video from WTHR. That's a station in Indianapolis that if you Google the word price cycling and WTHR, it's a really good story on what happens. Now that story is focused on Indiana, but you can basically substitute in any of these states: Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, even Florida is a market that price cycles. They cycled this week as well. So by and large, Matt, what we're getting to is that the national average went up temporarily because all the increases in these states just happened over the last week. But we should start to see the national average declining again. And by the way, RTs mentioned somebody getting good news and gas prices going down. Finally, the West Coast, you're going to be getting some relief. We've seen some improvement. And so California, the average is $4.71. Look at that. Up 15 cents in the last month. Everyone else has been going down, but relief is coming for California.
Only $4.70. Only. Woo, that's expensive.
You know, and by the way, I had a unique opportunity. I don't want to get too much into this. I wasn't able to do it. California is doing a lot of investigations into gas prices, right? They have Senate bills. There was a lot of talk this week on California because they're going to be investigating gas prices. You know, it's kind of funny. I talked to a reporter. You look at California and everyone knows. Well, first of all, the state of California says, oh, oil companies are gouging in California. If you're on I-10 and all of a sudden you go to Arizona, so the oil companies aren't gouging in Arizona, they just decide to gouge in California. That logically, that doesn't sound right. But anyway, look at the difference there. California statewide average $4.71. Arizona $1.30 lower at about $3.38 a gallon. In fact, there's some stations in Arizona below $3 a gallon.
Does it almost seem like the politicians in California, irrespective of political party, is almost putting the marble underneath the cup and saying, don't look at what we're doing? It's just a thought process, but seriously, when you look at like Arizona's gas prices, and chances are there's at least a handful of those counties that are getting the gasoline and the fuel from the same refinery. What? I mean, how? Gosh, how do I even ask this? What's the logic behind even making a statement like that? Because you would think that those in the chambers for the state house and state senate in any state would be understanding of the price point that they themselves are setting when it comes to taxes and other regulations that are placed upon fuel.
You just lost politicians there. They don't know the impact of a lot of policies they have. If they did,
how could they not?
It's politics. They don't want to say, I'm the reason for high gas prices in California. They're going to point at anything. Greedy oil companies is what they're going to blame instead of their policies. That's exactly why the map I just showed you, why California is beat red. And that's why the argument that oil companies are arbitrarily gouging in California doesn't hold up. Because California, is literally the only state that is so high. In fact, Matt, I'm gonna show it to you a different way. I'm gonna go on the Gas Buddy website and we'll pull this map up, because this one does an even better job. I mean,
good grief.
Hey, see what's going on? California is completely yellow, and the rest
one
of the
county in Nevada.
So don't even be like, oh, oil companies, they're only gouging in California. It doesn't make any sense. It's actually that the regulatory environment in California is so restrictive that not even the states that get their gasoline from California are paying as much. Nevada and Arizona get a bunch of their gasoline from California. And look, not even they are beat yellow like California is. So this does not pass the sniff test, right? When politicians want to say, oh, it's refineries, oh, it's oil companies, it doesn't pass the sniff test, because if it was oil companies, it would be not just California, it would be Nevada, Arizona, it would be all the markets.
Yeah,
So,
that makes logical sense.
I mean, it does, but politicians don't often make logical sense. Either that or they know the logical sense, but they're afraid to tell the logical sense to their constituents.
But
So there's my soapbox. But yeah, so California, low carbon fuel standard, cap and trade, special blend of gasoline. And by the way, the rest of the nation has already made the switch back to cheaper winter gasoline, not California. California doesn't change until, and we've highlighted this, they don't change until mid to late October. So, and refineries are, when do you do maintenance if you're a refinery in California, right? Because I mentioned the shoulder seasons. Basically, California has the smallest window of opportunity because their winter gasoline starts in like March and it ends in October. So that's like a condensed 4 or 5 month window. Do you really want every single refinery to have to do maintenance in that condensed window? That's why prices are going up or did go up in California right now, because you've condensed it because your policies and regulations suck.
So years ago, I'm going to date both of us. Years ago,
as if the gray doesn't date us,
right? You used to tell me in news interviews when I was interviewing you from Tampa or Chicago or wherever, that when the blend of gasoline would switch over from one to the next, you might notice that your vehicle in that very first fill up of the different type of gasoline would have not trouble starting, but might take an extra few seconds. I remember distinctly. I've got audio of it. I don't have it with me.
Pull it up.
I don't know.
That shouldn't happen at all. There should be no difference.
I was going to say, are we no longer at that situation anymore, that where it's just like the vehicle doesn't know the difference and doesn't care?
No, the vehicle doesn't. It really doesn't. The only difference, Matt, is that summer gasoline, the blending components kind of flip-flop. Summer gasoline gets rid of a lot of the cheap butane and substitutes in expensive alkylate. And for those that didn't listen to our previous podcast with George Hoekstra, we went into the details of what alkylate is. It's a high octane blending component. It's not volatile, and it can meet the stringent gasoline requirements for the summer. But alkylate's very expensive, like $4 or $5 a gallon in parts of the country. And that's why, by the way, the price of premium fuel is so much higher in some parts of the countries, because that alkylate is extremely expensive. In winter, a lot of that alkylate comes out and it's replaced by cheaper butane. So that's generally why there's a price improvement with the switch to winter gasoline, because it doesn't require as stringent of components that summer gasoline does.
Yeah, I tell you, that's good to know, and I'm thankful for that. And I sent you some pictures earlier this week. I forgot to preload them for our podcast. And I'm not going to, well, actually, it's probably good that I didn't. I'm not going to mention brand names. But at the top of the pump, if you recall a few days ago when I sent you pictures, it talked about if you fill up your vehicle with their highest quality of gasoline, you could get up to 300 more miles a year.
300 miles a year. Now, by the way, that's, I would guess 600 gallons is what the average, a little bit more than 600 gallons is what the average household uses. So if you're getting 25 miles a gallon, that's 15,000 miles a year, right? 300 divided by 15,000.
I did half of that last month.
We're talking about a 2% improvement over the course of the year. So again, 2%. Is
there truth to it? Is it actually accurate?
Chemically, it may be pushing things a little bit more. If you are driving in a laboratory, if you are driving the exact same way every single tank, it may be true. But the problem is no one is driving the same place, the same manner, hitting the light cycle the same. So it's a negligible difference. If you want to pay for that marketing, that's completely up to you. But I prefer still the ultimate dollar. I use the Gas Buddy app to find the cheapest station or close to the cheapest station. And that's how I pump.
Well, that is good to know. I always throw my 87 octane into my vehicle because that's what the owner's manual says, and get my oil changed every 7,000 miles because that's what the owner's manual tells me to do. And knock on wood, so far I've not had any major issues, and I hope to not have for many more miles to come. So there is that. So all of these things, we are looking at price points with regard to the fuel aspects of price cycling, if you will, everybody kind of going up at the same time.
Yeah.
I still have a question mark on that in my brain, like how and why.
Again, go check out that video. It's WTHR price cycling. It's a terrific video. Essentially, Matt, it's a form of price leadership where you're hyper competitive. You're the first one to lower prices. You're the first one to raise prices to back where they should have been when you're basically when you start selling below cost. And that's when you see the cycle happen, is when stations run out of margin, they run out of room to undercut each other. That's what causes the one station to go up in price. And then everyone's like, yep, we're in the same boat. We've run out of margin. We're all going to go back up. That's when the undercutting starts again, 1 to 3 to 5 cents a day for another week or two till they run out of margin. When they run out of margin, the prices make a big jump up. Whereas, Matt, in a different market where there's not this crazy game, stations are fluctuating their price a couple of cents based on the actual change. So if the wholesale price went down a few cents, that station may lower 2 cents. If then the price goes up, they may raise the price 2 cents. See, that's where price cycling markets don't do that. If the wholesale price goes up, they ignore it. And the next time they restore prices, they factor it in then. And that's where you can get some of these 30, 40, 50, 60 cent increases from. Is because not only are they restoring their margin, but they're passing along the increase in the price that they've accrued over the last week and a half, right? Because over a week and a half, there can be some pretty big changes in the wholesale price. And by the way, speaking of over a week and a half, something has changed significantly since the last time we spoke, and I'm going to pull it up here, and that is the price of oil. We see last week was below the $60 a barrel mark, and now it's gone back up to it's trailed off, but yeah, oil prices were below 70 at 1.68, but now we've crept back up a little bit more to about 70. So
right. So speaking of creeping up prices of oil and everything along those lines, our friends over at the Federal Reserve dropping interest rates by 0.5 percentage point.
Yeah.
Any longer term impact that you see, or even medium term impact that you see on the price of crude oil as a result of that?
Maybe not immediately. The Fed's comments, that's more what I was looking at, right? For hints of if the Fed suggested that there was any alarming data. There wasn't. Either that or they downplayed it pretty well. We'll be watching economic data in the form of jobs numbers. Spending was actually a little bit stronger in the month of August than anticipated. So that showed a little bit of resilience in the economy. We're also seeing some of the other metrics, Matt, like accounts, credit card balances and accounts past due are creeping up. So I don't know if there is an ability for people to really increase spending, even if the cost of borrowing goes down. So that's a metric that we'll keep watching as well. But yeah, I mean, nothing really, stock market skyrocketed as a result, as you might expect.
40,000 on the Dow.
That's incredible. If you checked your 401k, that was a great day. But yeah, the price of oil did jump, I think, over $1 a barrel yesterday. So, but it's now cooling off a little bit. Kind of what happens after a big rally is a little bit of profit taking or a little bit of selling in the market. Oil prices today down 30 cents. But ultimately, because the price of oil is up $4 from last week, that may delay the onset of seeing the national average fall below $3 a gallon. So it probably won't happen now in September. We're kind of pushing it back to maybe mid-October.
Well, that's certainly something for us to keep an eye on. And in the meantime, we're watching, stuff out near Israel, the Middle East. I know geopolitically speaking, we talk about that often. And more often than not, you're like, it's not that big of a deal. And you're probably going to say that again. But we know that Israel has kind of whether they're willing to admit everything or not. So we won't say Israel has done all of it, but there's been some action. We'll put it that way with Hezbollah, Israel, Lebanon. And
to your point, now it does
question mark of
and Biden doesn't look like he's going to get a ceasefire now. Absolutely, I mean, there's just been too much action,
and then of course you've got Iran backing. Which you have the crude oil aspect with.
Have you noticed Iran has stayed a little
quiet? Yeah.
So, I mean, they, for as much action as there is happening, things have kind of, countries have fallen into their role. So there's that, Iran is not making waves right now because, they've been put in their place by Israel. Israel had launched drone attacks into Iran. So Iran doesn't really want to become suddenly a lot more noisy. And I think Iran's nuclear ambitions are kind of taking front seat again. So they're maybe there's a calculus there that they're trying to, kind of not be the front page, if you will.
They're going a bit on
silently
preparing for something and who knows what. That's one particular question, or they're just, I see exactly where you're going with a whole bunch of aspects there. 104 in the past 24 hours, as of the time of this recording, 140 rockets that Israel launched into Beirut suburbs coming after Hezbollah pounding Israel with 140 rockets, I should say, which the Israeli military said came in 3 waves targeting sites along the ravaged border with Lebanon. That's from the Associated Press, by the way. It's going back and forth. Doesn't look like it's going to stop anytime soon. There's just so much going on. You have to wonder where that breaking point is when it comes to an impact globally on instability, crude oil prices, gasoline at the local pump. I mean, there's so much going on. Is there a tipping point where we say, okay, well, if we get to this point, there's no avoiding the fact that it's going to impact stuff?
Well, I mean, not really this time of year. If it was spring or summer, Matt, when markets are really sensitive to this type of thing, then maybe. But we're in fall. And the trend is downward, meaning it's going to take more and more noise to really get oil prices to react, or at least gasoline prices to react, because there's seasonal softening that is ramping up as we get into September and October. Every day that progresses, temperatures get progressively cooler out and Americans drive less and less, even for the holidays. Somebody asked me, are prices going to go up for Thanksgiving and Christmas? No. Because even though a lot of us hit the road, when we do, unlike the summer, when we hit the road, you may take the boat out, you may take the RV out, you may go to your cottage, then drive around, do all sorts of things. But for Thanksgiving, you just drive to where you're going and spend like 3 days with friends and family. You don't really move much. You might go shopping, you might go to the mall, but it's not like you're towing a boat and an RV that amplify your gasoline demand. So, everyone always asks, do prices go up for the holidays? Because they think demand goes up, but the weakest day for demand is Christmas. Like literally, if you look at the weakest day of the year for demand, it's Christmas, it's Thanksgiving. And really what the holidays do is they shift demand, right? So instead of spreading demand out Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, every American hits the road Wednesday, right? Maybe Tuesday or Wednesday.
So, keeping all of this in mind, where we are going here, we are eventually going to obviously get into that holiday season, Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and a few other, Hanukkah, other holidays, all spread throughout all of there. I shouldn't have
Canadian Thanksgiving as well. I've always wondered, Monday. I don't know how Americans would take having our Thanksgiving on a Monday. And by the way, theirs is only coming up in a few weeks in October.
Right. So these are the things that you're going to be looking at. And I guess, there's probably some small bursts of fuel consumption, like you mentioned, but then on average, no, the actual consumption overall for the fourth quarter isn't nearly as much as the summer months. Is that
no? Yeah, okay. It doesn't even come close. In fact, Labor Day was disappointing too. The busiest holiday for demand is usually Memorial Day, because that's always on a weekend. July 4 varies year to year because it can be on a Sunday, it can be on a Friday, it can be on a Tuesday, which is awful. So it does vary, but Memorial Day generally is the kickoff to summer and everyone is going out. But July 4 is a close second place. But again, it depends on when July 4 is, what day it falls on. But even then, there's some element of less driving on July 4 because people all go to their destination, they park. So demand during the holidays isn't, it's not exceptional. It's higher. But the other thing too, when it doesn't make an impact, Matt, because it's such a short burst of an increase in demand, right? When we talk about summer demand, that's over a much longer stretch of time that the average gasoline consumption in the summer is much higher. A holiday is only a couple days long. If demand stayed at the holiday level for like a week or two, then it would probably have more of a difference. But it's such a quick burst. And before the holiday, you're actually consuming less. You're getting ready, you're packing, and then after you get back, you're like, well, we just had that big road trip, so we're going to stay a little closer to home. So there's actually less demand on the tail end of it too.
Okay, so before we wrap up today's podcast, let me ask you about this though. Diesel shipping, is that kind of working in the polar opposite as the consumer side, because all of the extra goods for the busiest shopping time of the year has to get to all of these stores? Do we see things kind of moving polar opposite for diesel prices?
Well, as I pull up the diesel chart here for those watching us on YouTube, the price for diesel, look at this, 2 years. Diesel prices have fallen to their lowest level actually since late 2021, Matt, $3.57 a gallon, which is terrific news, but it's not the whole story. Grocery prices, there's going to be a lot of downward pressure on retail prices because the price of diesel, or some, but it doesn't make up that whole box of Wheaties, right? Diesel is not the whole box of Wheaties or Cheerios that you're eating. It's a very small portion of that. Is the cost of bringing that box of cereal or groceries to the store. And a lot of people say, well, diesel's so much cheaper. Why aren't grocery prices plummeting? Because groceries, like the box of Wheaties and Cheerios, they also are built on the price of a commodity. Wheat, right? Wheat, sugar, there's other costs. And the price of those commodities may not have fallen as substantially. So diesel is just a small portion of what you pay at the grocery store. But the fact that it's at its lowest level since, like I said, right here, look at that. Late 2021 is the last time diesel was this low. That is certainly great news. And that probably went into the Fed's calculus for cutting interest rates, is that we are seeing a lot of disinflation when it comes to the price of energy. Gasoline prices probably will dip to their lowest level. I mean, we're getting close at 320. We were a little lower during December and January this year, and then last year as well. But aside from that, the last time we were under $3 nationally was in May of 2021. So if we do get below $3, it'll be 3.5 years since we've seen prices that low, and that's terrific news for the economy.
So I was just going to say that should, in theory, hopefully help with some of the inflationary pressure with regard to even commodities on the store shelves. If it doesn't cost $5.50 a gallon to get to the store shelf for diesel fuel. But
if there's a 30% improvement, I would guess that of the cost of that box of Cheerios, the price of delivery is probably 5 or 10%. Mm-hmm. But if that 5 or 10% improves by falling 30%, that's still something.
Yeah,
but that takes time. That's kind of like airfares, right? Airfares don't suddenly jolt up when jet fuel prices go up. It takes 6 to 12 months for airlines to be able to raise prices to account for that jet fuel. So diesel prices have been slowly trending down, but don't expect it all to just hit all at once, right? This is just going to be over time. It's going to be, the fuel component is going to lessen in its significance, but it does take time.
And take into consideration that the layers of transportation that it takes to get one thing of anything onto the store shelf. And what I mean by that is we're going to talk about that box of cereal again. Well, you got to put the grain on you got to get it out of the field. You got to get it onto a barge or a semi or a train. You've got to get it, the raw materials over to wherever it is that they're going to be turned into that box of cereal. Then you've got to get the box of cereal to a warehouse. And then from the warehouse to, you see what I'm saying? Like many Americans may not really stop and just genuinely think about the layers and layers and layers of transportation it requires just to get one item onto a store shelf. And so every aspect of that, it takes fuel of some sort. It takes energy of some sort to make that happen.
And to your point, I mean, liquid fuels are still powering the economy. So to your point, in the supply chain, there's a lot of diesel from the farmer, harvesting the crop to it being delivered to, be processed, to it going to a distribution warehouse, and then to it getting to your local grocery store. So there's a bit more. Maybe the price of fuel is actually a little bit more, like 10 or 15%. But keep in mind, it's just one of the components that goes into what you're paying. We had somebody on social ask us to cover, the media hasn't really, they've been talking about this somewhere. Unusual Whales, which is a account on Twitter or X, had mentioned CNBC is anticipating that by November, the price of gasoline will drop under $3 a gallon. They didn't provide a source, but I still do believe that we have enough momentum to get there this winter, or I should say this fall. Like I said, now it might be a little delayed because oil prices have gone up, and there still are caveats, right? There still are caveats to that potentially not happening, and I'm going to pull up one here because there still is some activity out in the Atlantic. There's 3 areas of interest. But having said that, I still am hopeful that there's enough momentum that we could see the national average falling below $3. And that, it could be as early as October sometime. So we'll hope to see that happen. But yeah, I had a question. Somebody wanted me to comment on the $2.99 national average, which I still think it'll get there. It might not get a whole lot better than that.
So not $1.99. So the 234.
We're gonna be a little off from your preferred metric.
Dang. I mean, the 234 that I paid in Mississippi last week, that may be the cheapest gas I get for the year, which kind of makes me sad, but also happy because I was glad to pay 234 a gallon versus what I paid.
And by the way, Matt, there's something else as we approach the election that I wanted to draw attention to is a cool little graphic that we're putting out for the election, because it's been a question that we've been asked a lot is, hey, what's going on in some of these battleground states? And so if you go to the Gas Buddy blog, which is blog.gasbuddy.com, this is something that we're going to be updating every week. And I mean, there's 7 battleground states here in this election, and we're going to be covering what's going on at the gas pump because gas prices are a huge issue, right? I mean, we've been with a whole podcast dedicated to talking about oil markets and gas prices. So this graphic, the 7 battleground states, the average price and how much they've been going down, or in the case of Nevada, they've been going up. So check this out. This is a graphic that, if you're tuning in, you can repurpose this graphic if you're a reporter, if you're a member of the media. But this is going to be really interesting to see, look at Pennsylvania. It's a battleground state. Look how high they are. Look at Nevada at 396. And so I would, again, blog.gasbuddy.com, Pump Politics, our weekly gas price tracker for the battleground states. It's going to be something that we update every week. So check it out.
All right. Well, other than that, I think that pretty much takes care of everything today, correct?
It does. Be sure to follow us, subscribe to us on YouTube. Check us out there. And if you're listening, always appreciate our listeners and our audience. Thanks for participating. Questions, as always, you can reach us at podcast@gasbuddy.com. If you have any complaints, direct them to Matt's personal inbox, or you can reach him on Twitter over a barrel Matt. I'm Gas Buddy Guy on Twitter or X. You can find us as well on TikTok. Gas Buddy is the channel on TikTok. I'm Gas Price Guy over on TikTok as well. So a lot of videos that I've been trying to put out over there, Matt. We'll see if any of them really garner attention. But on behalf of Matt and I, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate our audience. We'll see you here next time.